3 and the part 4, which it goes after us, is more focused on the kind of community sides and the society. And so first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Makoto, and I wear kind of 2 hats. The first one is a developer at the ENS, Ethereum Name Service, which provides a kind of readable name for the very complex hexadecimal Ethereum address. And also, I am a co-founder of a startup called Kickback, which is a kind of meetup app where it has a kind of unique staking model. If you have been to some East Global hackathons or side events here during the DevCon 5, you might have used our service, and you might either lost some money or you might lost some money. And but more relevant point is that so actually all the panels is based in London, and in London I'm kind of organized one of the smallest meetup called London Ethereum Code Up, and we use a Monolith office for the last few times, and a couple of people just came in. So this talk is more about focus on community, and also DeFi is a very big part of Ethereum, makes it more attractive, but how we can basically bring that power to the rest of the basic society. Then the next one goes to the big future. But so today we have 3 panels. So Anna is from Acropolis, and Fran is from Altai, and Aaron from Aragon. Do you guys want to do a quick introduction?
Okay, awesome. I'll go first. My name's Aaron. I'm the community ambassador at Aragon. I primarily work on business development, so I help projects design governance solutions and deploy and administer DAOs, as well as provide technical support. And I also mentor teams and individuals interested in DAOifying and navigating the DAO landscape. So,
yeah. Maybe Fran?
Yeah, I'm Francesco. I'm one of the founders of the Adai DAO. We're a community project. We launched last August. It basically allows people to separate interest from principal and redirect the interest. So it's allowed a few interesting use cases like no loss donations. It's something I started with my business partner, but it's now become a DAO, so it's community driven, and we're trying to basically make it a building block for other people to build on. We're currently working on version 2 of Ardai, so if anyone is interested in collaborating and has ideas of how to make this broader and more accessible, please let us know. And I'm also working on a separate venture-backed project in the DeFi space.
Cool. Anna? You're on mute, Anna.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Anna. I'm from the Acropolis project. We focus on uncollateralized lending to our members, and essentially, it's a pragmatic pool of capital to give access to credit and yield to the members of the pool. My background is mostly investment banking and PE.
Cool. Thank you for the introduction. So as you guys already introduced yourself, so all 3 has some kind of relevance to the DAOs, but each DAO has its kind of different flavors. I've used, I actually also summoned one of the more flavor DAO called Orochi DAO, but I think Moloch is very different from how for example, Aragon works. Maybe you guys want to talk through what's kind of DAO for you, and what's your approach different from other DAO organizations?
Okay, I'll jump in here. So for me, the term DAO is a really nebulous term, right? Some people's definitions are so broad that any organization would fit in, and some are so tightly scoped that nothing today we see would qualify. But to me, a DAO is a coordination mechanism that goes beyond simple signaling, right? So an essential part of a DAO is that a DAO makes binding decisions, right? And so these decisions are enforced somehow, today's by the Ethereum blockchain, but in the future might be something else. But the real distinguishing feature that makes a DAO like different from something as simple as a Telegram group is that these things actually have real decision-making ability and they're binding. So yeah, and that's basically it for me.
Just follow up on that question. So the decision will be made on a DAO and a smart contract. But what's your normal communication channel? Do you usually use Telegram or do you use any other specific channel?
So like, this is the thing, right? So having like these people have been able to, collaborate and communicate and come to consensus before DAOs, right? So even with Facebook, these are platforms that people can use. However, with something like Facebook or Telegram, like Wise, you can get like-minded people together in a group and you can all be interested in the same thing and you can all like coordinate with these things, but you can't make binding decisions together as a group. And I think that's a real important aspect here, right? So if you look at something like the Hong Kong movement, right, there's hundreds and thousands of people that, they can coordinate and they can protest, but they don't have any actual resources that they can bring to bear to challenge that problem. And that's like one of the key distinctions between like what a DAO is and what a DAO isn't, right? So the element of being able to, affect change in the world with actual resources is really important here.
So something like change.org, like there's always like, oh, give me a petition and you get million petition, but it may or it may not necessarily change.
Exactly, right? So exactly. So you can petition about something, but if you have like actual resources to bring to bear on that problem, like if you had, if you're making a petition about something, but you have no funds to do stuff with, then it becomes really difficult to make an actual change effect. And it's not to say that it can't happen, because it does, right? But a DAO, it's like a layer on top of these solutions that we already have at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see. Fran, do you have?
Yeah, I actually agree with Aaron. Surprised we're so aligned. So for me, the main point of a DAO is it's an organization which is bound by its own rules. It's not bound by rules that are inherited from laws or governments. So the fact that its jurisdiction is the smart contracts that it's based on is the important thing. So I think that's why they're so new and so interesting, specifically because they don't require traditional enforcement mechanisms. So if you think of companies, collectives, any kind of organization in the traditional world which manages assets, they need to rely on identity and legal systems. And smart contracts allow you to have anonymous organizations that have self-enforcing rules. And that changes everything. That's what interested me for DAO. So anonymity is super important. A lot of people think it's not, but anonymity is what allows minorities and marginalized groups to function in society, right? If you have to always say who you are, if you're not on the right side of the law of the society, you can't operate normally. And that's why anonymity is super important for DAOs, in my opinion. And that's why I don't usually like the more kind of legal DAOs, because obviously in order to be legal, they have to identify users, and that's a weak point, not a power.
Right.
If I could just jump in there as well, like I think that's a really important point that you made, because like trust is like an essential part of this as well. So with a DAO, you can coordinate and you can make economic decisions with someone that you don't really know. Like a perfect example of this is we have a guy called Barata. He works as the head of growth at Aragon, and he's like a pseudonymous person on the internet. Like I happen to know him in real life, but like he could be he could be a 14-year-old girl in Venezuela. He could be DeepMind for like you just don't know, right? But that's not what matters. What's important is what he says and what he does. Right, so like I don't have to factor anything into my decision whether I want to collaborate with him or not. It's simply the fact like what he does, and I can do that because I trust that he cannot violate those terms of engagement that we both agree on. Right, so like, and that, if you want to compare and contrast that with something like the traditional world, if you have like a traditional business like HSBC, for example, like you might not trust the CEO, but you trust that he will act in accordance with the shared rules, because if he or she attempts to break those rules, the state will take action to punish them. But like, what happens when you don't either trust the state, or when that assumption breaks down, like in 2008, right? Like, that's why I think that is why the DAOs are really important, and yeah, like that is what makes them different and unique from traditional organizations.
Right. I think now I'm bubbling up with lots of questions. But before start asking a bunch of questions, let's ask Anna about her like position.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here with a slightly different perspective. In our case, we built our own DAO toolkit simply because ultimately, in order to govern the pool of capital and to be able to allocate the assets of the treasury to not only on-chain assets but off-chain assets as well, which is the vision, we needed, we do need a legal entity for that. So it's a trade-off, right? Essentially everything that you guys are talking about, fine, so long as the collective of people in question have no objective or interest in owning off-chain assets, real-world assets collectively, right? Number one. And number two, so long as the concept of limited liability, it doesn't apply to what you guys are doing or doesn't bother you, right? And this is what a lot of people seem to forget, simply because let's look at the original DAO hack, right? Obviously, it didn't have a legal personality, because why would it, right? The reality is, if the legal investigations had gone a slightly different route, it would have been simply treated as a partnership, and people would have had basically would have been responsible with all their personal assets, right? That's not fun, but these are just real-world considerations that I think it's just important to be aware of. So in our case, we will be going for legal personality, not dissimilar to Nexus Mutual, simply because the purpose of what we're doing calls for it. But if the purpose of your DAO is just to coordinate effort and to coordinate and lock in spending of on-chain funds, then yeah, sure, then it's not needed, because the trade-offs are, you have to give up the identity of your members, for sure.
Isn't Nexus Mutual fully even though Nexus Mutual is the the legal entity in UK, but they don't manage any off-chain asset, isn't it? Like it's more like prediction market, and everything is in on-chain.
They don't, but at some stage, as any DAO that has a treasury, they'll have to allocate the treasury to some income-generating assets, right? Otherwise, they won't be able to grow. So Hugh can speak to that more. So essentially, in our case, we started with that. It's important for our common treasury to be able to hold not just on-chain assets and get let's say automatically reinvested and automatically rebalanced yield from DeFi protocols, but also in time to own off-chain assets. And you can't do it unless you have a legal personality. But I think more and more people have been realizing that, and in some use cases the trade-offs are worth it. Even though I do agree, increasingly anonymity is becoming a scarce commodity. And
also, as well, sorry, just to add to that, I work for the Aragon Association, and the Aragon Association is a traditional real-world entity based in Switzerland, right? So, one thing that's really important to note here and to really keep in mind is that we are so early at on this journey into the future, right? the whole idea and the whole thing that we're trying to push towards is, like tokenizing all the things. So, like in the future, we're hoping to move towards a world where all of these assets are on chain, right? And also there are other mechanisms where, we can like coordinate and own things that are in the real world. So like, whilst today, that might be the case, in the future, it's not, it shouldn't have to be. I think that these things, when we're talking about wrapping, like right now, it's really possible to wrap a DAO. There's a project called the LAO that enables you to wrap a Moloch DAO or an Aragon DAO in a LLC. So you can own off-chain assets as well. But these are like, I see these things as stopgaps into get to the future to where we're trying to go to. So for sure, like it totally does not invalidate having a DAO that has a legal wrapper, because for now, like that can be really important for some projects. And even Aragon itself, like we are creating these tools, but even we are not a totally pure DAO yet, because it's not actually totally ready yet. So like, yeah, that's basically it really.
Cool. So next question, you kind of, I think we talked about, initially we were trying to talk about some like legality on the DAO, but you guys already kind of start touching upon. But if it's just step back, I think depending on what you care, like some of them could be more like on-chain stuff, some of them off-chain stuff. I just want to know a bit of your kind of entry point to the DAO, that like what brought you to the DAO? Like what aspect of DAO you saw, oh, this is great, so I needed to get into the DAO. I think that kind of sets in your kind of stance on the like DAO legality on-chain, off-chain stuff.
Yeah, I'll just start with that if you don't mind. In our case, it was very simple. It had to be a user-owned organizations with users receiving, essentially, pro rata shares of the fees and income generated by the DAO. That's it. So it's an equivalent to a partnership or cooperative or mutual, just represented on chain. So basically, I mean, as long as you have your goal is to involve the members of your group or your community in the economics that is being created by a product, and you need an element of governance, then yeah.
In your community, I understand that you are currently in a test net, but what's your kind of go-to community or go-to market in your product, for your product?
Oh, it's very simple. I mean, these are people that are seeking access to the collateralized credit and want to make sure that they get the best rate on there. So it's simply a savings credit and money management tool. The treasury gets automatically rebalanced between a number of options, right? And it's basically a mechanism to source alternative yield on your money.
Yeah.
In crypto.
Yeah. So I guess it could be anyone, but it could be like, if, for example, is it like for like American or European people, or somewhere in like Africa, Asia, or like high income, low income?
Yeah. I mean, it's crypto natives, right? So, we did quite a bit of custom development in Kenya, but it became apparent that it's actually uneconomical to do there. But, for crypto natives, right? So initially, inevitably, the biggest community of users right now in DeFi are speculators, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the projects that are speaking today are seeking to engage with normal people and get feedback, and you can actually get the mind share of normal people. And I think what's happening right now is that increasingly, as we are solving for UX, as guys like Monolith, Argent and others are making the products a lot more easy to use, and on ramps and off ramps are cheaper and easier to use. And people will see that actually there's a real alternative. I don't need to necessarily make do with negative interest rate environment, right? I can get access to credit in other ways, and I don't have to be locked in with some extortionate fees that I don't even know what they are, right? So ultimately, it's about building alternatives. But right now, the target audience are inevitably crypto natives. I think we're still, quite a bit away just from the onboarding and the cost perspective as an ecosystem. But I think inevitably, if what a lot of analysts expect to be a depression worse than 1929 is going to come upon us, then that will be a time, for DeFi either to shine or to go away.
In terms of the crypto native, for other brands, Aldai and Aragon, are they currently mostly just targeting crypto native audience, or do you go people who has no clue of what the DeFi Ethereum is?
So at the moment, where we are with the technology at the moment, it's difficult. The end goal is to reach non-crypto users, and I suppose we'll talk about help down some other stuff we're doing later on. But at the moment, it's mainly crypto native users. We're really, really early on in where we're in the cycle of DAOs and crypto in general. It really is quite difficult for people to use at the moment. So but that is the goal, is to try to bring in as many non-crypto people as possible. But at the moment, it's mainly crypto natives.
What's the biggest bottleneck or hurdle for people to kind of get in? Is it more about buying the crypto, or is it more about understanding the whole concept?
Yeah, I think that, conceptually, I think that a lot of the concepts are not the problems, right? Because you ask the general person how a US dollar works, they have no idea. It's just money, right? And it's the same thing. You ask them how email works, they have no idea, right? You shouldn't have to know that. I think that the main problems are definitely UX, and onboard ramps and offboard ramps are totally a problem as well, right? So I think that these are challenges that
and expensive still.
And another thing is totally way too expensive to interact with these systems, because we haven't even reached scalability yet or anything. So
right,
I think those are the big problems that we have at the moment.
Right. I think in terms of the kind of understanding the benefit of DeFi and the stuff, I actually asked to Frank to join this panel because I thought he's working on so Alda itself is a very basic concept of the redeemable DAI, but he's been I see him in every hackathon and start thinking about some a Ponzi, some a noble one. Maybe you want to introduce a couple of the projects you've done?
Yeah. So again, we released our DAI. Then we built a kind of interest rate swap in ETH Berlin last year. Then at the latest hackathon here in London, the ETH London, we built kind of let's say savings-based pyramid scheme, which was quite cool. Good ghosting, it's called. So yeah, all these projects for me are trying to make stuff more usable, but it doesn't have to be usable for the end user necessarily. I think DeFi has to, there are some things that will go to the end user, but a lot of it's gonna stay in the middle, right? And those things need to be built too. And it's not everything we build has to be for end users. But I do agree with Aaron and Anastasia. The main problem are on ramps. If you think of something like Apple Pay, right, or Google Pay, who knows how that works? Where is the money? Who's holding it? What are the conditions? Nobody knows, right? It's just Google flips a switch, they launch this product, and everybody uses it, and there's no clear understanding of what the trust assumptions are. But people use it because, as Aaron said, it's just money in the end. And as long as it's easy, simple, and cheap, and it's adding value to people, they'll use it. And I think we can achieve the same effects with crypto as soon as we don't charge 3% for on-ramping from dollar to DAI, right? Because people see that. Like, you can immediately notice that something's happened and you start asking questions. If we can eliminate that, all of the rest can be explained away. I mean, that's my opinion, at least. So with RDAI, for example, there are a few projects that have been built on top of it, like R-Trees. So R-Trees is a very simple concept. It's a dApp where you go, if you have crypto, if you have DAI, with, I think it's like 2 clicks, you basically start donating the interest to a tree planting charity. Very easy UX, very simple concept. And in the crypto space, it attracted a lot of liquidity. And there are a few big charities which actually saw this and are now thinking of how they can adopt the same model, because it's something that is intuitively very attractive to people, right? They don't lose the money. It's just the interest that gets donated. So it's very low friction donation mechanism. But in the end, if you go and look at the on-ramps, right? If you have a 3% fee on the on-ramp and the DAI is generated...
Just quickly, I think other people, can you try to mute? Yeah, it's getting a background noise. Yeah, go on. Yeah,
I'm just saying, as long as the on-ramps are expensive, none of this is ever going to go mainstream. At the same time, when volumes pick up, hopefully the on-ramps will become cheaper. So let's hope that feedback loop makes it all go forward.
Yeah, just to follow on that point as well, like I totally agree with a lot of stuff you said as well. But I'm really excited about RDAI as well. Like, it's a fantastic project, and I see these like protocols like RDAI as being like middle layer protocols, kind of like how like SMTP might be. Like, you don't know how the email gets to you, but you just know that some magic's happening behind the scenes, and like you're just earning interest from it. So yeah, like I totally agree with those points as well. It's mainly about UX fees, these types of things, and we're actually getting there, but it's just taking time. And I think that we want everything to happen really, really quickly, but these things just take time, and that's just how it is, really.
Yeah. Speaking of all these projects, built on top of like your project, I think so. Franz talked about R-Tree, all the stuff, and I think Aaron, I heard like you guys start working on help DAO for the kind of response to this corona, all these things. Do you want to kind of expand through a bit?
Yeah, so Help DAO is like it's an initiative to help like local squads, to help vulnerable groups during this COVID pandemic. So what Help DAO is doing is providing software and documentation to help people create local squads. And like this software is like forms like a donation portal where people can contribute. And also there's another really super interesting project called Mooney that we're integrating with as well, that allows you to off-ramp directly into your bank account without KYC, right? And that enables people to, like, those on the ground that have nothing to do with crypto, they don't know anything about crypto, they don't know about MetaMask or anything, but they can, they're providing value on the ground, and we can use those funds directly from the DAO and send it directly to their bank account, so they can, help people in their locations. I mean, right now we have squads that are building in London, Barcelona, Madrid, Crimea, Moscow, Lombardy. There's a few more that are popping up as well. Like, and compared to the scale of the problem, of course, it's like a drop in the ocean, and it's not really going to make a massive impact. However, these are the initial starting blocks for us to build upon and to push forward with. So
yeah, I guess in terms of like kind of helping for kind of response, it probably like off-ramp could be more important than on-ramping. On-ramping, like, you can just ask like people who have a crypto to donate. That's the easy bit. But how you get to the end point, right? Maybe is there any way you can integrate with Monolith?
Well,
they're for off-ramping, right?
Well, so I've got my Monolith card.
Right. Yeah, don't share the detail on the back.
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah.
on the back.
Yeah.
So yeah, like obviously I get paid in crypto. Like, I'm a total crypto native. All my money comes in crypto, and obviously I've got to pay my bills, right? So off-ramping is traditionally a very difficult thing. Like I used to use WireX before, but it really sucks. And like, I've used Monolith as like my primary driver. But like for even then, you still have to understand crypto. You still have to know about like how to send it and these types of things. What's really exciting about projects like Mooney is that, you know, it's like a really simple UX like Uniswap, but you can offboard directly into your bank account. So I think like initiatives like this are going to be really important to bridge that gap in you know, reaching non-crypto users and stuff. So
is it any bank, or is it just limited to certain?
I think
like
that,
only, or?
I think that Mooney, it's like a collection of APIs. It's wiring together different services, but I'm not sure exactly how it works behind the scenes. But what I do know is that I could send Bitcoin or Ethereum and I get money in my bank. So that's basically really.
Okay. Okay. So now let me just move on to a couple of the audience related question from audience. Let me check. First one. Okay, how can a for-profit DAO make a difference in a time of financial crisis? What are its limitations? I don't know why it's restricted to for-profit. It could be both for-profit, non-profit, but any opinions?
Well, I spoke quite a bit, but like my opinion is like that, you know, if you remember back to 2008 when the crisis really started kicking in Greece, they had a really bad banking crisis, right? And if you had a bank account in Greece, half of your money was just taken away straight away. You couldn't go to the cash machine and take your money out. You have to queue around the block to maybe get 80 euros, maybe, if you was lucky, right? And these things here, like, yeah, like crypto, why is it has its own challenges and stuff? Like, it's about sovereignty, right? And you are sovereign over your own wealth, basically. So during these types of crises, these are the primary benefits and things that can, you know, I pass that on the stage. I'm sure like you probably have quite a bit of input into this.
You're on mute, Anna.
Thanks, guys. No, I agree completely, because I mean, ultimately that's what we're building, because what's happening right now isn't news. Analysts have been talking about it for years, that, you know, there will be a series of sovereign defaults, that there will be run on banks. You can't print your way out of the problems, and unfortunately, you know, most pensions are just a complete, you know, they're going to be defaulted on, you know, because the mathematics simply doesn't add up, right? So that's why, you know, what we wanted to build was basically a programmatic on-chain fund that can step in certain cases and provide an alternative. Right now, what we're going to be seeing is, you know, my bet is that US is going to be a lot more exposed than Europe. But let's say deposit protection scheme that applies to bank accounts are going to be revised, right? So in the US, I think that's 100,000 USD. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. In the UK, it's 85k sterling, right? So we're all based in London. And I can tell you, in 08, I know a lot of people that have been waiting for a long time to get their money out of the bank and for the government to come good on the deposit protection scheme, right? Right now, the closest thing in DeFi we have to that is, you know, is Nexus Mutual cover, you know, when it pays out, right? And obviously it has certain caps. So everybody in DeFi should be incentivized to help Nexus Mutual grow its asset base, because right now I'm not aware of any solution that, you know, that can actually protect your deposit and fulfill this function, right? So that's the main use case, right? But, you know, because the UX is just so utterly painful. And the cost element is still quite high. Shit really needs to hit the fan, which I think will be happening this year, I'm afraid, for people to be prepared to actually actively overcome those hurdles, because it takes a situation when you know that unless I learn something new and I change my habits and I try a different approach, I will be losing my money on a daily basis, right? And I'm afraid this is what we'll start seeing at speed and in size this year, right? It's, yeah, I'm not optimistic about the broader economy. I'm definitely more optimistic, on DeFi, assuming that we can solve the Oracle's issue and the upfront cost can go down to something that is at least on the same level as credit card charges, which I think is possible.
Then this is a topic that we didn't really discuss in advance. Then I just made me think that, so we talk about some limitations, scalability gaps, all the stuff. Do you think that's limited to Ethereum, or is it just blockchain in general? In other words, if you change to other platform, would that solve this all the hurdles?
We need to ask Justin Tron. I don't know. I mean, he's trying to listen. I mean, to be fair, probably it would be great to have this dialogue with the Tezos community. I don't have color on this, right? But right now, every blockchain and the hamster is trying to build their own DeFi ecosystem, right? So, I mean, I can't speak to them, but to me, it seems, if we're looking at other blockchains, the ones that, whose views I personally would be interested to hear, it would definitely be big guys from Tezos, and potentially Ava, yeah.
Ava?
No,
Ava.
Ava.
Ava is a
AVA. Yeah, it means thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to them recently. Yeah. I think they're getting ready to launch. Yeah.
How about?
It's
yep. Go on.
No. That's it, really. Yeah, I just think it's Ethereum obviously has an advantage for the time being, but we have scaled a protocol, right? Where a few other guys that are seeking to improve on the status quo, and obviously the first thing that they're going to be incentivizing and building off are going to be replicas of existing money market protocols and another successful DeFi apps that have proven product market fit, right? So we'll see how that develops. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah. Brian, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with Anna. Like, welcome, come build it. When you build it, then maybe we'll use it. But it's useless to read too many announcements, right? I think there's too many announcements and not enough substance. But when the substance comes, we shouldn't be too dogmatic about technology. It's just technology, right? Liquidity is more important, I think. And if we're trying to solve problems, the best tool should win. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't be about your own bags. It should be about solving problems. So let's welcome innovation from other chains. Although honestly, it's not there, and I'm a pessimist. But and regarding the economy, I share the outlook that Anna was talking about. Like, I think we're going to see very, very bad things happen. I'm originally from Italy. I was brought up there, and I can tell you, when shit hits the fan, they will go through your bank accounts. Like, it's happened before in Italy. It's happened in Greece. In Italy, they literally took money from accounts. Like, they just took it. They never gave it back. And that's just what happens when you can't print your way out of a crisis. You have to get money somewhere. And governments do not cut expenses. Like, that doesn't happen. and there's no way you can cut fast enough to make up for costs, right? So they'll try and print their way out of it. We'll see. We might not see inflation because for some reason inflation doesn't want to appear, but we'll definitely see people losing confidence in systems. And I think, like Anna said, pension systems will go bad, and unfortunately, I also think that health systems will not be what they might have been up to now. And I do think DAOs and mutuals in general, like the system of mutuals, is what's going to make a big comeback and is going to help communities survive through this crisis.
Yeah, actually, what's really interesting, I'm not sure if we have time, just one interesting fact is that since 2008, I was at Lehman Brothers when shit hit the fan, and I was involved in restructuring after the crisis and the auctions throughout the crisis. What was really interesting is that the rise in mutuals had nothing to do with DAOs, simply user-owned organizations increased quite a bit since 2008 up until now. I've got some stats on that. So there's like a report by a European mutuals organization that I've got to dig out. So yeah, I agree with Frank completely that would, or at least that's the hope, right? You hope that will be the positive outcome as opposed to us ending up with big government and giving up just unspeakable amounts of privacy, of freedom. Because I mean, guys, if we look at economic history and what was happening in 1929, right, for example, it was illegal. Like, you either give your gold to the government, right, or you get 10 years in prison. So forced asset buybacks have happened before, right? And they were forced in such a way that, frankly, you'll give up your assets for like whatever price they pay you, and they were buying gold for $20 per ounce, whereas the market rate was kind of 35 at the time.
Okay, I think time is almost up, and I think this is good. We are setting a scene for the next post panel. But before we finish off, any last word to audience?
I think that for me, one of the most important things to be cognizant about when we're talking about all of these different things is that these things take time, right? So sometimes when these things are going through these problems and these crises, and we look to DAOs, we look to crypto, we need to bear in mind where we are, and like we are making incremental improvements and we are getting a lot better, but we can't solve everything right now. Like it's just not possible. Like earlier on, we was talking about, okay, so is what if we switch to another platform? I mean, it's not about the platform itself. I mean, everyone's on Ethereum right now. That's where all the developers are. That's where all the activities happen. But if we all switch to Tezos, we'd still have the same problem, because you get to, everyone will be there, and then they'll have scalability issues, and the prices will still be high. It's not about the platform. Like, I'm not ideologically attached to any of these things, right? It's just that we have to just be cognizant, and we have to just continually just be working towards this future that we all share, and this idea that we all share. So that's basically it, really, for me.
Fran?
Yeah, I just reiterate that I think in these times it's very important to be protected, and buybacks, asset seizures, whatever, it's gonna happen. I hope everybody is taking the precautions, that are necessary, and I hope DAOs and DeFi in general actually shines and not crashes. I do agree with Anastasia that if it doesn't happen now, it never will. Like, there's not going to be another shock like this for a while. And if we don't push through this and grow exponentially, we've failed. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next year and a half, maybe 2 years. I'm personally bullish. I would never do anything else, but I hope I'm right, and I hope we can all make it happen.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Yeah.